coming up next. Exclusively on Recovery Channel.
Hello viewers, you're welcome to this telecast. I am Pastor Lucy Oko. I'm happy to be with you again in this telecast. This is Family Matters and is a segment where we discuss family issues on how to move your family forward, because the purpose for which God created the family is for us to live in harmony, to be happy and be able to worship God freely without any issue hindering us. And that's why we come up with this segment, to be able to help families. I talked about conflict resolution some time back, and today I will start a teaching on dealing with compulsive habits or behavior. And when you're talking about compulsive behavior, it has to do with a mad desire to do something that is odd, that is not palatable. So is an uncontrollable urge that makes people behave in certain way. When you begin to see someone that behaves in a repetitive manner, in an excessive manner, and also a meaningless manner, that eventually at the end of the day you cannot explain why the person is doing such a thing, it tells you that the person is under some kind of force. So compulsion is actually a force, Though when you talk about some of those things, you may have a physical explanation or a medical explanation. Some may have a medical explanation for it. But the truth is that whatever has to do with compulsion equally has to do with some kind of force coming upon that person to make him or her behave in a certain way that is meaningless, that is excessive, that will eventually lead to shame, that he or she will not even want to own up to the act. And so that is compulsion. And I have a Bible reference to read. I'll read from the book of Luke chapter 22. I'll read from verse 3. Luke chapter 22. I'll read from verse 3. That would explain why people behave in certain ways. It says, "Then Satan entered into Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12 disciples." Devil entered into Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12 disciples. You see, if you are listening to me now, this would kind of give you a preamble, an explanation on why Judas Iscariot acted the way he did. You can imagine someone who have walked with someone like Jesus in his time. He was among the 12 disciples. It was said from the beginning that Jesus would die on the cross for the whole world, and he was going to be betrayed. But there was no particular person that the Bible actually referred to that was going to commit that act. But eventually we can read from the Bible that to an extent Judas yielded to the devil, to an extent, because the Bible says we are tempted after our own lust. So eventually we can read from the scriptures here that Satan entered into Judas, and that was why Judas eventually became, he wasn't himself. It was more of a compulsive act that he eventually had to betray Jesus, because ordinarily he wouldn't have done it. If you also look at the way Judas ended, eventually he committed suicide. Why did he commit suicide? Because that act was it was an excessive act. It was an act that was not ordinarily his will. There was something that took over his will and made him to do it. Satan took over his power to say no against that act, and he did it. And that explains compulsion. That's why certain people do certain things that eventually they become ashamed of. Some of them, when they have committed the act, they begin to wonder, why? What came upon me? Why did I have to go that far? Because the devil entered into them, and they started behaving in that way, and it led to a lot of shame. What are we talking about when you talk about compulsion or compulsive behavior or habits? There are so many, numerous, but I'm going to highlight some that I will eventually begin to talk on one by one after the other, so that we can explain some of these things, so that when you are having some of these issues in your life, you should know that you need God. You should know that it is beyond you. There might be a medical explanation to it, but I also tell you, it is more than just the medicals. The devil also capitalizes on it to use it against you. What are some of those compulsive habits? You talk about hoarding, excessive hoarding, where you have people want to keep and keep. You talk about gambling. You know, people just gamble believing that there's money coming somewhere. It becomes a habit. The devil capitalizes on it. It becomes compulsive. Then you talk about inordinate sexual activities. Inordinate sexual activities that can be referred to as someone who may be a nymphomaniac. You know, that is the medical name. But you see, when it becomes excessive, then there is a problem. Then you also talk about when someone just steals without any reason to steal. That you have the medical name that would call it kleptomania. When you find someone doing that without any reason, then it begins to call for concern. What are some of those compulsive habits that you get engaged in, and even you are ashamed to talk about it? There are prayer lines on the screen. You need to call for prayers. You need to call for the help of God. And I assure you, when you bring it to God, God is faithful. He will make a way for you, and He will take away that shame from you. I'll be back after this time out. Stay tuned. School with a difference. Aside the academic standard, their spiritual aspect is a good one for me, and I give them thumb up for that. It is school you will love to bring your children. It is school I have never regretted bringing my children, because with Sovereign Lord Academy, you're sure for better and good results for your children.
Sovereign Lord International Academy is the best school I've ever been. with well-equipped classrooms, conducive environment, and qualified teachers.
In terms of facilities, they are one of the schools that have best facilities you can think of.
Our vision is to be able to raise visionary leaders for tomorrow that will be able to stand for the truth. Our goal is to be able to impact them socially, spiritually, morally, and academically, so that wherever they are, wherever they go to in the future, they'll be able to stand firm and do what God has designed them to be.
About our teachers, we have competent and qualified teachers, not talking about their certificates alone, but they are men and women of high intelligent quotient. And our moral standard is so high.
Teaching has really been interesting. I think I've been in teaching now for the past 7 years. Most especially handling children has really been interesting.
It's been fun, working with the teachers and the children of Sovereign Lord Academy.
When I found myself in the school environment, I'm not tense, I'm not angry, I tolerate them, I teach them and I groom them like my own children. When I talk to them, they listen and they understand me.
God have also given me parents who have also cooperated with me to be able to achieve our God-given vision in the lives of those children.
I have 3 children in the school, but I'm going to talk about the first one, Favor. She actually started with Sovereign Lord Academy when she was, a baby. She started with a crèche, and the school has actually impacted so much knowledge in her. Spiritually, I see my daughter, even when she, right from the age of 5, taking her Bible, she gave her life to Christ. And you could see the handiwork of the school, even in her behaviors at home. Oh, academically, she's so awesome. I see her take her books. I see her even nurture her younger ones, telling them to know how to go about their homework. I'm so grateful to Sovereign Lord Academy because I know that with this school, the sky is the starting point for the children.
For me, one of the things that brought me close to the school at first was the appearance of the building from outside. You understand, when something looks appealing from the outside, you would want to see what is going on the inside. And I can also say that it's not that only the building is okay from the outside, even from the inside, the people there are very hospitable. I know how much I've interacted with them, and I can say that they are very nice people.
Sovereign Lord International Academy is a school with a very good standard. It's where I feel so comfortable bringing my daughter to. I think they've got a very good standard. Spiritually, academically, they help the children so well. My daughter is 4 years old and can do what a 6-year-old girl can do. Academically, she's so sound, and I'm so proud of that.
Sovereign Lord Academy is a school that I would always and will want every parent to take their child to, because they have passion for children, they are focused, they know what they are doing in terms of training the children to taking them to the greater heights. The school have impacted so much in my son. It's been so wonderful. They are actually training in the way I would love my child to grow. They have passion for children, and that's what every parent should always look out for.
It stands out. It's unique on its own. The edifice, the teachers, the warmth right from the gate when you come here, the way they handle you, the way they treat you. It's a school that has the life of God in it. You can feel the presence of God once you step in here. Parents who haven't had any opportunity of coming here with their kids, take that bold step. Come around and find out what the school entails, and you'll be amazed that there's still so much more that you're yet to discover.
Being a more or less a missionary or religious school gives me more conviction. Initially, I think my boy started from the crèche and my girl started from pre-nursery 1. It's been so wonderful. schooling there because I've always been getting the value for the tuition I pay.
What makes the Sovereign Lord International Academy stand out is the fact that we run a Christian curriculum. A curriculum that we developed from the British curriculum, Nigerian curriculum, and the Montessori curriculum, which makes it a very balanced curriculum that is ideal for every child, preparing them for the future.
In Sovereign Lord International Academy, the pupils are well cultured and nurtured.
We also believe in engaging our students in extracurriculum activities because we know that academics is more than just the classrooms. And so we engage them in other clubs like swimming club, the ballet club, the music club, all other clubs that are equally very, very important, and our children equally are doing very well. We're employing more parents to see the vision and buy into the vision so that at the end of the day, the children that God gave to you, they'll be able to fulfill purpose, because we know that every child that God has created is for a reason.
In Sovereign Lord International Academy, learning is fun.
You're welcome back. I want you to know that people exhibit a lot of compulsive behavior that are complicated, and some of them don't even know. And some of those excessive behavior I would like to mention is sometimes excessive shopping, gambling, hoarding, lying, pornography, watching pornography, inordinate sexual activities that cannot lead to satisfaction, and so many other things. For me to conclude this teaching today, I would like to talk about hoarding. Hoarding is a compulsive behavior that if it becomes repetitive, it becomes meaningless, and it also becomes excessive depending on the way you go about it, the attention that you give to it. And like I said compulsion, having a compulsive habit, is actually a force coming on someone that he or she is not able to hold his or herself against some of those activities. And so it becomes a compulsive habit and a behavior that becomes destructive. And hoarding is one of it, especially when we consider the present state in the Nigerian economy, even in the world. Presently, there's recession everywhere in the world. One is tempted to want to begin to hoard more than necessary. When you begin to do that, it becomes a problem. Some may think that having the ability to hoard is being prudent. No, being prudent is different from hoarding. And that's what I want to make you understand here right now. I want to read from the book of Luke chapter 12, I'll read from verse 13. Luke chapter 12, I'll read from verse 13. It says, then someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." Jesus replied, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" Then he said, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed." That's Jesus talking. He says, guard against every kind of greed. Excessive hoarding is a form of greed. He says, life is not measured by how much you own. Then he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, "What should I do? I don't have room for all my crops." Then he said, "I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I will have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. I will sit back and say to myself, 'My friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, you fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for? Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth but not have a rich relationship with God. That is a form of hoarding. The rich fool, he thought that he already had so much, and instead of him to think of what other things to do to them, he kept keeping. You know, when you talk about hoarding, hoarding has to do with excessive acquisition of material things. Then also inability to discard, to throw away or give away some of those things you may not necessarily need. When you are not able to do that, then you have started hoarding. And when you hoard, like I said, it can become a compulsive habit which the devil will capitalize on, and eventually it leads to repetition, it leads to excessiveness, and it becomes meaningless, and eventually it leads to shame and poverty. Remember Judas at the beginning. He betrayed Jesus thinking he was going to make so much money from it, but eventually what happened to him? It led to his death. That is what compulsion eventually wants to achieve in anybody's life. So hoarding it can become a compulsive habit. We just read about the rich fool. When you are not rich towards God, when you're not rich towards God's people, all you have, you hoard, you keep, you are so scared of giving away. Eventually it becomes a problem. So being prudent is not a form of hoarding. Having investments is not a form of hoarding, but they are hoarding, like I said, excessive acquisition of material things and inability to be able to discard those things that you don't even need, those things that are not useful to you, but you keep keeping them. Even in money, you have some people have monies stocked up in the bank. They are not doing anything with it. They are not investing. They are not giving out. They are not supporting God's work. They are not supporting God's people. They are not supporting family members. Eventually, the money is there. Do you know some of them eventually die and leave the money without spending it, just like the rich fool? Whatever you have, God is the one that has given it to you. There is nothing that you have that God has not given to you. And so you must always learn to also worship Him, praise Him with what He has given to you, so that you can gain more, so that your life too can be meaningful. Of what use is it if all that you have kept, and eventually you can't use it, others can use it? And the truth about people that hoard is that some of those things they don't even use for themselves. They just have joy in seeing them around, you know, and looking at them. Some will go there and dust it again, remove the dust and keep it back. That have become compulsion. I see God delivering you from every of such habits in the name of Jesus. The prayer lines are on the screen. Like I said, compulsion is a kind of force coming upon someone, and let me tell you, there may be a medical explanation, but I tell you, the devil is behind it. That is why you need to call for counseling. That is why you need to call for prayers. You need help, because if what you have, you can't use it, is useless. You're watching me right now. I am Pastor Lucy Oko of the Sovereign Word Church. I want to take our time to invite you to our church services. The addresses are on the screen. We have a branch at Ikeja, we have at Egbeda, and we have annexes at Surulere and Festac. I want you to make our time. I look forward to seeing you. This is Family Matter.